and welcome to the Nonsense in the Chaos. I am your host, Jolie Rose. It has been a lovely week. I've been on holiday with my partner, Dizzle, my husband, and we have been to the UK and we visited my brother for his birthday in London. And Dizzle experienced the world of London for the first time on a proper going out in the evening kind of way, which was amazing. It really threw him that we didn't stop and talk to and listen to the charity fundraisers that had their clipboards that wanted to talk to him about knife crime and gay rights. And he was just like, I never thought I'd walk past someone who said, do you support gay rights? And it did just seem so weird to him. And I was really struck by how many words there are everywhere with marketing, because in Guernsey and Sark, there aren't billboards and adverts everywhere. And so that was something that I really noticed, was the amount of words and slogans and things that are just being shot at you all day long, every day. And they are sent to diminish your confidence and diminish your belief in your wholeness and completeness and perfection, which you are. They make you feel like you could fill that void with a product they're offering you. I know we know that, but when you haven't seen it for a while, it's quite shocking to experience. I feel very lucky to not be exposed to it on a day-to-day basis. It's been an interesting week. Both Dizzle and I were really ill, had a horrible cold. I've been reflecting a lot because it's getting close to the end of the year. My birthday's on New Year's Eve, so I always do a lot of reflection at this time of the year as well. So I'm a bit snotty and I'm sorry, I'm a bit sniffy. My voice is probably a bit weird sounding. And I can see the sea. I'm in Guernsey at the moment. So went to my brother's birthday, then had a lovely week in Essex with my mum, and Dizzle got to see where I'm from. My mum had put all her decorations up and it was so lovely to be home, because I've been home since 2020, since I moved to the Channel Islands. And my mum really loves Christmas and goes to town, so it was so nice to see the house decorated. And then also to see my friends in Brighton, because two of my mates are moving to Australia. And so we went down there and I took Diz to his first drum and bass night at the Concord 2. Then we had a night out on the Saturday, catching up with people, had dinner at a friend's house. And on the Sunday had a massive, it wasn't a roast, but a burger meal at a pub with about 40 odd people. I feel like I saw everybody. I feel like in that week I managed to cover all the bases and see everyone. I even took Dizzle to Kentwell Hall, which wasn't open, but the footpath runs up to it, like up the drive. So you're allowed to go up the drive and you got to see the house through the gates. It just felt like I shared my world with Dizzle, which was really nice, because obviously I'm very much part of his world. And it's nice for him to see where I lived. It's a gorgeous sunny day. Got back to Guernsey. It is noticeably a few degrees warmer here. We're having a few days in Guernsey at Dizzle's dad's house. He lives here on the island. And we're staying here for a couple of days before going back to Sark. It's just like the last bit of our holiday, which is nice. Just a time to integrate the time that we've been away, which I think is so important. Integration is a really important part of everything. And I needed a couple of days, because as soon as I get back, I'm going to be working and it's just going to be back to having to do all the things. And I wanted to have a bit more time. So I'm walking now. It's a half-hour walk to a place called the Imperial, which is a hotel on the shore, most westerly point. It's a little peninsula that sticks out. And I'm walking there, and I haven't walked around Guernsey much. I looked at it yesterday and it's 40 miles to walk around the coast of Guernsey. And I thought, actually, I might take a few days out and do that quite soon, actually. I might do it soon, because I've been reflecting on how I've been ill nearly all year after not being ill for many years, because I'd given up wheat, dairy and sugar. I'd nearly lost my voice I've been on steroids for my asthma, the purple inhaler, which is like a slow release of Ventolin, which is the blue inhaler. And I've been on that I got diagnosed with asthma when I was about 7 and was given inhalers from then onwards. So it'd been 30 odd years of taking these inhalers, and they were drying my voice out to the point where I almost couldn't speak. I actually thought that I was going to have to stop speaking at some point, and it was quite weird. And I even had thought about it quite a lot, and how I would happily do a silent devotional thing. There's a tractor coming, excuse the noise. You get tractors on Sark, but I'm also on an island where there are vehicles and roads. So there's a tractor in the background that adds to the ambience, I think. Because I felt like my voice was going to run out and I was going to not be able to talk anymore, I'd considered it swearing a vow of silence. I actually really liked the idea of it. And there were regular nights that would occur when I was in Brighton where I would completely lose my voice. If we were somewhere where the music was loud, and especially if I was smoking or something, which I dipped in and out of for the years, despite the fact that I have asthma. When I had the nights when my voice was gone, I just had such a fun time. I remember playing Guess the Prop for ages, and I had this silly star wands that made a kind of ding noise when I swung it. It lit up, and I turned it into like a pedal for a gondola, then the handrail for an escalator. It was a badminton racket, microphone, hairbrush and toothbrush. I just kept turning it into different things. I had so much fun doing it because I couldn't speak, and people loved it, and I had a really good time. And I thought, actually, there's something really present and powerful about not being able to speak that I liked. So it was something I considered. And then I did an apprenticeship with the Seed Sisters, who I will hopefully be interviewing in the not too distant future. And I started this course with them, doing this herbalism apprenticeship. And we talked about my voice because it was obviously a noticeable part of my personality, was this very husky, dry voice. And they said to me, you don't have to take steroids, you know. And I was like, what do you mean? No, you don't have to have asthma. And I was just like, well, what do you mean I don't need to have asthma? They said, you're probably allergic to wheat, dairy and sugar. It's what most people are allergic to. And it'll be an anti-inflammatory thing. If you give those things up, you possibly won't have asthma anymore, and then you won't need to take the steroids anymore. I just thought that sounded nuts, but I gave it a go, and this was in 2020. I gave up wheat, dairy and sugar, and I lost 2 stone immediately. So that was inflammation. So it just went really quickly. And then, I ended up losing 4 stone in total from giving up wheat, dairy and sugar. That happened again this year as well, because I gave it up strictly over the winter to have a proper break again, but also to lose weight for the wedding. I was thinner actually this time than I was in 2020, which is mad. I had the same wedding dress because it was a very expensive wedding dress that I bought for my first wedding, and I put quite a lot of accessories with it. So I thought if I changed the accessories, I could use the same dress. And there's been 14 years in between the first wedding and the second wedding, and I was thinner at this wedding, which I thought I was quite proud of, but I also went a bit too thin. And so this year I've just been like, hey, I can eat whatever I want, which I have. But then I think that's why it's weird. I feel like I haven't eaten that much wheat, dairy and sugar this year. I feel like I've eaten lots of food, but I haven't been eating the wrong foods necessarily. But my asthma seems to have really come back. So we went to London just as I got this cold. You know, when the cold is hitting you, you feel that you need to stop and rest. And sometimes you can't, and you've got to push on through. This was one of those moments. Like, I just arrived in London, all these things were planned, and I just took loads of day nurse and just had to ignore it. And it was just a cold. It wasn't COVID, but it was a real proper cold. And I just had to push on through. I tried not to touch people much or be too close to people. I didn't want to spread it to everybody, but really annoying. So had a much worse bout of the cold than I would have done if I'd stopped. It just really went to my lungs, and it was just as we got to London, and I couldn't breathe, and I had really bad asthma. As soon as we got off the plane, we could smell the solvents from the car fumes. So it's just a completely different thing in the Channel Islands where there isn't these car fumes, and you don't realise until you get off the plane how bad they are. I was staying with my brother in Catford, and the amount I was wheezing, I had to sleep sitting upright on the first night, breathing so badly, and it's from the car fumes, and I lived in that. I grew up in that, and because we don't realise how bad it is until you're used to not having it, it's shocking how awful the air quality is in London. Really bad. It's killing us. It's not okay. I did notice it in lockdown actually when the cars started up again. I could smell burning tyres, and then I realised that it was the car fumes and that was what the world normally smelt like. I'm just coming up to the sea. It's beautiful. And it's a gloriously sunny day. So in 2020, I gave up wheat, dairy and sugar. My asthma totally cleared up, and I haven't had it since. So for 4 years, I've got so used to not having it, I don't even consider carrying an inhaler with me. But like I say, I got to London and needed one. It's weird, being in Guernsey where there are cars. It's like, I hate cars. I hate them when I do my pilgrimages. But I'm feeling so much like I need to walk again, and I will walk around Guernsey, which will mean that I'll be walking around when there are cars, but there's a lot less cars than there are in London. In front of me, the tide is out and all the rocks are exposed. They're beautiful, and it's such a beautiful place. Across the road, try not to get run over by the cars, and just have a look at this beach. Below me is all mud flats and rock pools and seaweed. It's beautiful. Wow. There's no pavement for me to walk along, and there's no beach, so I'm going to have to walk along the road. So there's going to be some cars going by. Oh, but the sun and the light quality here is noticeable because there isn't the pollution. The light quality is really different. I'm just looking at a fort, and I think it's a dwelling. Wow, that's a cool house. There's a fort with a causeway going out, and I'm pretty sure that it's an Airbnb that you can stay in. And I think people have said that when the tide comes in, the causeway goes underwater, and so you get stuck there temporarily. It's like a tiny little island. Wow, it's really cool. Let me get a picture of that, actually. I'll put this on the social media for you to see. Wowzers. It's nice walking along talking to you. Hope you're enjoying being with me on the journey. I've been reflecting a lot on my year and where I've been at. It's been a really crazy year. I've really noticed how much not doing the pilgrimage has affected me. I've been trying to balance everything with how the year's gone. I did an evaluation report on the year because I'm a Capricorn, so that's the sort of thing I do. And in the positive side was 14 things, and they were really positive. So I got married to the most beautiful human being I've ever met, which is an absolute honour. Our wedding was amazing and part of a festival that was sold out and absolutely smashed it. I took part in Glastonbury Festival, which was wonderful. That was really fun, working with Shangri-La, who I just think are such cool people doing good work in the world. And then I worked with like international expert specialist in supporting people to find their higher purpose. I've worked with him this year and he's been brilliant, supporting me to find my higher purpose. It's been very interesting. I don't know which side I'm meant to be walking. I'm going to cross over and walk on the other side. And then walked a short pilgrimage from the Isle of Wight to Winchester to Boomtown, and opened Boomtown in front of 40,000 people with Inja and Gina G on the stage. That was amazing. Then ran a venue there called La Luna Coven, and that was awesome. Sort of teaching enlightenment to young people. That felt like a real privilege to do. And I wrote a book, the first book in my 4-part series called Walking with Autumn, that's about the pilgrimages that I've walked. This one was called Pilgrimage for Grief, which is the first one. I found the writing voice and I'm really proud of it. I love it. I think it's rather good, if I do say so myself. I started this podcast, which I'm very proud of. I've served in the government as the Chair of Education and on 3 of the major committees, Policy and Finance, Infrastructure and the Medical and Emergency Committees, which has been an honour and a privilege. And yeah, I think that's everything on my list. But then the negatives have been that I've felt burnt out nearly all year. I'm tired. And I've been ill nearly all year. When I gave up wheat, dairy and sugar, I not only lost my asthma, but I stopped feeling ill. And I used to get ill really easily. And I had not been ill for a few years. I got used to someone who wasn't ever ill. And then this year I've been ill loads. And I've got a cold again now, having just got over the cold that I had while I was in England. So it just feels like something's not right with my health that I need to sort out. I feel like my cup is empty. I've been giving and giving and giving, and that was the other one that was on my list that I haven't said, which was 25 dark and forming ceremonies that I've held online for people for free to come to, which supports people to connect to their higher selves and to the world, the natural world around them, the seasons and the cycles. So that's been lovely. That was a lovely thing to do. But yeah, I just feel like I'm putting a lot out there and giving a lot, and I feel quite empty, and I need to do some throat work. My voice isn't right again. So yeah, I just feel like I need to clear my system out, eat the right things again, and look after myself, build up my immune system again and refill my well. Need some kind of adventure. And I'm also absolutely fed up of having no money. It's just exhausting, and I think everyone probably feels the same. there is a big opportunity or likelihood that there's going to be revolution vibes this year. Well, not just this year, in the next 20 years, as we've entered the age of Aquarius. But the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the American industrial and French revolutions and a bunch of other revolutions in South America and places. Yeah, so we're back in that energy again now. It's an air sign instead of Capricorn, which we've just been in for the last 20 years. So it feels like there's a lot of different kind of, almost like we've stepped onto a travelator, faster, freer area energy in the mix now. And that's a real opportunity for us to flip the script and change what's going on and change the way that things are being run. Stop these bastards from squeezing us for every penny we've got. It's not fair. It's not okay. And I haven't got any more. I'm done. I've got nothing. Absolutely skint. It just costs me the same amount of money for me and my husband to go to England to stay with family. And we didn't even leave the house for 3 days. So we didn't have to pay for accommodation. We didn't have to pay for most of our food. So we're there for a long week. And it cost us the same amount of money for that week's holiday in England that it did for our wedding. And we did manage to do our wedding on the cheap, but it basically cost the same amount for us to go on holiday to England. Absolute insanity. I couldn't believe it. I only saw it because I've finished my current journal and flicked to the back of my diary and saw the list of things that I needed to pay for the wedding, like a horse and carriage and a photographer and things like that, were the same price as us going to visit my family. Just to go home, basically. It wasn't even a holiday. To go home and see my friends, see my family in England, cost the same amount of money. The world has gone mad. Everything's too expensive. It cost me 150 quid to do 3 train journeys, from London to Brighton and Braintree to Brighton. It's not even halfway across the country. It's like a 45-minute out of London journey. Absolute insanity. So something needs to give. People can't live like this. I'm interested to see how the revolution is going to make it, because I'm worried about revolution. It's not something to be talked about lightly. How to have a gentle revolution. Oh, this is funny. I just realised that the whole reason why I was going to talk today and what I was going to talk about in this podcast was ceremony, and I haven't talked about it. But actually, this is the kind of where I'm getting to with what I'm talking about. It's that it feels overwhelming. So yeah, we do need a revolution, and there are different ways for it to happen. There are soft revolutions, there are gentle revolutions, and then there are big bloody battly ones. And what I would like ideally is a soft revolution where we just wake up and start saying no, stand up to the powers that be, and use our collective voices and grassroots endeavours, initiatives, happenings to change the narrative. So with ceremony, I wanted to talk about the reason why I do ceremony. And I do ceremony every 2 weeks, dark moon and full moon. And I do it because otherwise I feel like life is just a non-stop drone. Like you might have a lorry going along really fast and it's just pressing the horn and it's making that long, really horrible noise. It feels like life is like that unless we do ceremony and we stop and take time out to enjoy and be present. The reason why I think ceremony is important is that life is otherwise this never-ending drone. By having ceremony every 2 weeks, it makes me stop and check in with what I'm doing. Why am I here? What do I care about? What's the moon doing? What sign is it in? I don't believe in astrology in a I believe in it kind of way. It's more of a prompt and an invitation to consider every aspect of humanity. And I find that really fascinating. And if you follow that wheel, then you will, following the seasons, which is what it's all about with astrology, you're seeing it reflected in the weather and the plants and just the things that are happening in your environment. And at the same time, you're paying more attention to the world around you. So, for example, we're in Scorpio season. That was all about the world going into decay, and that's when you have Halloween, Samhain, and everything's slowing down and dying. You have this celebration and a connection to the dead, and you think about your ancestors. It's really important in one's own life to stop and think about our ancestors and the people that aren't here anymore and give them a bit of time and love and just consideration. Scorpio is about the land composting and slowing down and chopping itself up into little pieces. And you've got all this mulch in the floor and the grass that's, there for next year. And Sagittarius, which is what we're in now, is the next one along after that. That is the season of infusing that mulch with life force energy, ready for the spring. Once those components have rotted, they then transform and transmute into energetically infused, vibrant, virile soil that's ready for planting in and growing in the new year. And it will sit dormant for December, where it's cold and hard and frozen, and gives us this time to just stop and reflect in life. And Capricorn's all about community and people. At the winter solstice, it's connecting to community and looking after each other and protecting each other and making sure that we're going to survive the winter months. And then in the spring, we will then have Aquarius, which is the age we're just coming to, which is when that life force energy wakes up. And that's when we start to come alive again. And that's really cool. I was an atheist for the best part of 20 years. Didn't believe in horoscopes, thought it was like witch doctory and evil in a way. I had been a born again Christian and then I completely turned my back on it all and was like absolutely atheist to the core and just believed in science. And I still do. So that part of me is still there. But I realized that it was actually becoming hard work denying and ignoring the bit of me that was really interested in all this stuff. It's not that I think it's true or I believe in it. The way I see it is it's the art department. So I feel like the art department is the kind of storytelling aspect of the reality that we've created. We used to watch the sky like a movie and the stars would go over and we would tell stories about what we saw, these stars. And they have helped shape our reality. Like the Greek myths and the Greek legends are where most of our words and language come from. The Greek myths are the bedrocks of our reality. And they came from the stars. They were the stories told about the stars. Because we often tell it as the myths and then we go, and then they threw them up in the heavens. And it's like, well, that's not the way around it happened. They were looking at the stars and they made up these stories. They put them down on Earth and made the story sort of real. But really, they were telling these stories about these constellations. They were looking up and telling stories. So once you let all this stuff in, I'm now able to be an astro guide at the observatory here on Sark because I know about astrology. When I was an atheist and a scientist, I couldn't have done that. I now know about herbalism, botany, biology, pharmaceuticals and chemical compounds. I'm so much more aware of the natural world around me. And because I'm following the seasons and I'm paying attention to them, I notice how they're not the same every year and that we follow this wheel of the year, but it's never the same Scorpio season. And, the plants are all coming up at different rates. I'm noticing global warming in a different way because I'm paying attention to what comes up first and what's sprout at the same time. I'm now out on the mud flats, walking along this beautiful shoreline in Guernsey. And I know what seaweed's edible and I know what plants are edible. And I know so much more scientifically now. I have let in what you would call like esoteric spiritualism into my life than I did when I was just a staunch atheist, because it's given it an interface that I relate to. It is the art department. I think spiritualism and esotericism should be and could be and is for me the art department of science. Where I drop out of the conversation and where I'm not interested is when it gets to a point where I know that it's going beyond science. That for me is what I think Christianity is and other organised religions, where they've even separated it from the earth, which they call paganism. They separated it from the earth and they made it just metaphysical and put it into some beardy man in the sky and then said, if you're interested in the earth, you're a heathen and we're going to burn you. That's when I'm like, I'm out of here. This is no longer for me. However, I still really appreciate sacred spaces and I love much about religions. I think all roads lead to the same city, and there's a kernel of divine beauty in the centre of every faith. For me, it's about having this rich interface with the actual world that is here and doing it in a way that feels more anthropomorphic and personal and spiritual and has a deeper connection than just books that you could sit in a room and read in a lab and never go and interface with the actual physical world at all, but just do it all through, I don't know, science equipment and and books. For me, that doesn't cut the mustard. I want to be in the world physically experiencing it. I want to be an explorer. I want to be out there actually connecting with the land rather than reading about it and chopping it up into bits and, setting fire to it and seeing what happens. I want to be in it and witness it and connect with it and experience it, which is where I do then get wah-wah, because that for me feels extremely real. And I really miss this year not doing that pilgrimage and doing the pilgrimages. So I definitely feel like walking around Guernsey would be a good thing to do. I do the ceremonies each fortnight as a way of stopping and connecting and noticing and assessing, and it's a bit like pulling off from a long journey. If you are this lorry with this horn going on and you're just ploughing through life, a ceremony is like a tea break or a toilet break where you just stop and you look at the map and you check the route is still going the right direction and that it is still where you want to go. And it's just to check in. Is this still the way we want to be going? Revitalise and refresh and get rid of what no longer serves. Do all the things to fill yourself up again so that you're ready to set off. And I have found that, and I do find that. So I'm just not sure what the thing is for me that this year with the refilling the well and what that feels like is about. I question whether I'm perimenopausal, but I've been taking ashwagandha for over a decade because after IVF, I got unwell mentally and physically and found ashwagandha sorted that out. And actually ashwagandha is a kind of natural HRT, and my cycle is still extremely regular. So I haven't been getting monthly, massively bad fluctuations. I get PMT a bit each month, but it's not as bad as it was pre-taking ashwagandha or during IVF. I know how bad it can get from doing IVF, so I know how mad you can feel from that hormone fluctuation, and I don't feel like that. I feel like the ashwagandha's been keeping it at bay and has been like a natural HRT, but it's my fitness and energy levels. Waking up after a night's sleep and feeling tired when I wake up, and I'm questioning all of that and going, okay, so what's going on? There's some sort of vitality that's not there. It feels more like, for me, that maybe there's an iron thing there or something like that I need to explore, but also that I feel like I need to go do a retreat. What I'd love to do is go to Colombia to see my shaman guy who I did ayahuasca with and do a ceremony with him. I feel like that's what I need, like go on an adventure. But the finances is the thing. I just don't have that resource to do it. And that's not me pleading. This is not me asking for money from you, the listener. This is me sympathising and empathising with you because I am assuming that you're in the same boat as I am. And it's the first time I've ever felt trapped. I think a big part of my happiness used to be measured by my next Airbnb booking, and I'm aware now how much that was part of my happiness, was knowing I had some kind of adventure planned. It wasn't necessarily a holiday. It could be going on a pilgrimage or doing a theatre project, performance, whatever it was. I normally had something booked on Airbnb for the future, whereas now, this last 4 years since the pandemic, that has changed everything. And yeah, the world has changed quite a lot from the pandemic. It's interesting to reflect on it. So 2008 was when Pluto entered Capricorn and it left this year. So 2008 was the beginning of the financial crisis, and MySpace going over to Facebook as being the most popular social media. And it ended with Donald Trump getting in for the second time. And in that time, we've had the pandemic and austerity, and we had Corbyn nearly get in and then get pushed out and destroyed. We've had this mass genocide that we've all just stood by and have allowed to happen. I know we haven't wanted it to, but history is going to be looking back on this and watching the Palestinians be wiped out and the world kind of doing it. I suspect this is World War III. World War II didn't clearly begin with one thing. By the time America joined, that was when it was like, okay, this is World War III. But there was war going on before that. And I think this is World War III. And it's already begun. Ukraine and Palestine. There's a lot going on and it's tiring. And so I just want to empathise and say I hear you. And I'm sure that you're also tired, and I'm sure you're also skint. We're in this together, but there is hope. we are pixels in a screen, and it's a big screen, millions of pixels, more pixels than there's ever been before, which means there's more moving parts than there's ever been before. The reason why I've talked about us turning to steam is because Alan Moore described that we had the Ice Age and then we turned to water when we started to trade and move around, and that now we're entering into a time of steam. Ideas, inventions, memory storage is all doubling exponentially. And so people are inventing things constantly. Things like working with fungi to eat plastic and, AI, like all sorts of, it's unfathomable the amount that's going on. And so, and yes, there's fake news and all of this, but there's so much going on and it is all at our fingertips and we can find out and learn about it. There are things we can and need to do. Ceremony is one of them. Ceremony is vitally important. For me, fortnightly ceremonies with the moon connects me and stops me. And every time I don't feel like doing it, and every time it's a bit of an effort to do, and I never regret it, as I never regret a sea swim in the cold. So I'm not saying you have to go do a sea swim, but doing physical exercise, getting out there, doing physical things, and just doing the things that we know work for our mental health, like being in nature, connecting with nature, exercising, stopping and checking in, working with the cycles and working with your own cycles, and just all these things that we know help us and support us on our journey. There's all to play for. We are in this new epoch of the age of Aquarius. They haven't got it all sewn up. They really haven't. And also, why do they want to sew it up? Because sewing it up means us all dying. I don't think that is what whoever they are actually doing. I think that the they is many individuals, all of which are different, with children who are rebelling against parents and parents who are rebelling against their parents. And most of them enjoy nature and most of them want the world to live and survive and thrive. And most of them are probably normal people in very privileged positions where their actions are having a huge effect. We are some of those people because we're in the West. So we're in that top pyramid. We might not be the 1%, but there's a whole massive pyramid below us, which includes the animals and the plant life and many layers in between of slaves and horrible existences that we are able to exist because of. So we're all playing a part and we're all in it. And just stay positive. We've got to keep having hope and we've got to keep creating. We've got to keep loving and shining because we can only affect our pixel. They're literally overwhelming us on purpose to try and put us off and try to scare us so that we just are compliant and go, well, fuck it, like it's too late. It's either business as usual or it's too late. And it's like, why is there never the in between? So if it's business as usual and there's nothing to worry about and there's no problem, then we're completely screwed anyway. Therefore, there's no point in doing anything. It's like, where's that bit in between where we can do something about it, where there is something wrong and we can do something about it? That does exist. They're really good at tricking us, the narratives of one or the other. And so we have to force, it's like we have to put our elbows out and go, no, there's a place in the middle, which is actually the biggest bit. It's the widest bit, because really business as usual and everything's fine is bullshit. So that doesn't even exist. We're completely screwed and so there's no point doing anything. Also doesn't really exist. It will exist if we carry on ignoring what we're doing, but the bit that does exist is the actual bit, which is where we live, which is there is hope, there are things we can do, and we just need to be doing our thing, but we can only do what we can do in our little pixel. So connect with people, talk to people outside of your echo chamber. It was one of the things that came up in the ceremony yesterday that was the most important we all felt, and is why I'm doing the work that I'm doing on living on SARC and being in the government and being surrounded by people who aren't my tribe. You see on memes all the time, surround yourself with people who raise your vibration. And I agree with that. That's very relevant. We're currently working with this Gemini, which is the twins, the inner and outer world, yin and yang, and all of that, which in tarot is the lover's card. In that card, it's about us finding balance, finding harmony, understanding our inner and outer worlds. In that space, on that frequency, we should surround ourselves by people who are raising our vibration and think like us and support us to be the kings and queens we are, because we are developing our foundations and finding ourselves. Once you've done that and those foundations are set and that inner world has been brought to the fore and you're comfortable with who you are and the shadow and all the stuff, Then the other end of the spectrum is Sagittarius, which in the Thoth tarot deck is art, or temperance it is in the normal decks, more Rider-Waite decks and things. But in the Thoth tarot deck, it's art, which is, if you look at it, it's an alchemist. So there's this being there who is half silver and half gold, and is working with the griffin and this phoenix, and they're pouring potions into this cauldron, and they're creating art, but they're creating alchemy. It's alchemy, and they're alchemizing the dark matter into gold. And once you've got that balance, what are you going to create in the world? What are you going to do? What are you going to be? We're doing the work, and it's time for us to create. It's no longer about surrounding yourself with people who are supporting you. Yeah, that's great. It's good to have them and know where they are and go hang out with them. And I just spent a week with my tribe, being nourished and being supported and loved, which I needed because I was feeling depleted, and I still do feel depleted. I need to do some more of this inner work. I need to do a bit more of that for myself. But going back home to Sark and living in the Channel Islands and being surrounded by people who are all on very different pages to me, who are from all sorts of different realities, just feels so important. And so part of the bigger work, which is to try and support the world to love and choose love over fear, and to choose nature and the earth over destruction and demise and greed and profit. So that's what I'm working for, and I hope that we all are. And I think if you're listening to this, then that's probably what your jam is. Hopefully that's a bit of support and inspiration. And yeah, I'm going to pull a rune and see what the world's telling me that I need to do now. So let's see what the universe wants me to say or talk to you about. Wants to add to the conversation. So it's manners, community. This is about people, mankind, and community. Well, okay, so what has come up in looking at Mary Magdalene? Mary Magdalene's gospel was removed from the Bible, and the 3 or 4 versions that exist of it have had the first 6 pages ripped out, which is interesting because it starts on page 7, and there are 7 stages to Inanna's descent and ascent from the underworld, and there are 7, sometimes 8 hookups between the moon and the Venus in the journey. So yeah, 7 is the magic number. It's also the number of the fool. So 7 just keeps coming up as this magic number, which is interesting. So on page 7, her gospel starts again. And then there's a few pages ripped out in the middle, and in all the versions that's happened. So it's quite a big thing. And the main thing is, the reason why this gospel was removed is there was a few gospels that were removed, about 3 or 4. And all of them were the gospels that said that we were God, that we're all God, that everything is God, and that we're just part of it, which is what I always say. The whole universe used to be the size of a melon, and then it went poof. And so everything in that is in that. And everything living and dead, everything is in it. It's all just still here. It's all here. Everything's in it. Because every bit of energy that transfers, that's gone from one life to another, was within that melon and is still in that expanding melon, as were all the atoms and particles that have made everything. So the whole thing's still here. The same Lego kit that was in that initial melon, Lego kit and electric charge are exactly the same as what they were. They're just further spread out and expanded and have moved around and done some different configurations along the way. But it's still all one thing. And the Gospels that kind of highlighted that and said, you are God, we are all one God, one thing, God is within and without, were the people that got removed. And Mary Magdalene was one of them. And she said to Jesus, does a person who sees a vision see it with their soul or with their spirit? And the Saviour responded, a person does not see with their soul or with the spirit, rather with the mind which exists between the two. Now, this mind isn't like the mind that we know in this day and age, the split between the inner and outer world. The translation, which doesn't actually translate properly into English, is nu, and that in French means we, which is the kind of twin effect, which is like the inner and outer. But in Greek, it means the eye of the heart. And you think of the Mary Magdalene image, it's that burning heart, that heart on fire. What it means is how we see anything changes everything. when we see with the eye of the heart, the moments when we remember to see the world through the eyes of love. And it's when, and that for me is this Manas rune. People annoy you, people do things all the time and the world is full of fear and war and pain and suffering. We fall into and can easily be part of that and feed into that fear and the demons that come with that. And occasionally we remember to not do that, and we remember to meet the world with love and to see the world through the eyes of the heart. When we do, everything is released, everything is freed, and we're able to meet our enemies as us and remember that we're all one, and to connect and communicate with each other from this place of love. I was really in a bad mood about someone today, and I was talking in a way that I then just felt really uncomfortable about. I was getting a lift with my stepmother-in-law to the ferry port, and I just got out of the car and I felt really icky about how I'd just been speaking, and I didn't like it. It's difficult because you don't want to be walked all over, and you need to have boundaries, but how to still do that from a place of love, and how to also just let it go. Does it really matter? Does it really matter? Can you meet these people that become your bad fairies from a place of love? And that's what this means to me. And for me to be able to do that and keep coming back to a place where I can do that, I need to refill the well. Ceremony for me is that. It's the place where I stop, take stock, refill, nurture and nourish myself. Doing this on my own is important so that I can do this without it always being a kind of output thing. If you enjoy this podcast, then please consider subscribing and becoming a patron of the arts through patreon.com/JolieRose. It's £3 a month for the basic tier. Don't sign up to the free tier because you don't get anything. You're literally just giving your data to Patreon. And also don't sign up through Apple, through the app on Apple, because they take 30% of the money, and I don't even use Apple. It's literally zero to do with them. So I don't see why they should be getting 30% of your donation, and I'd rather you were able to get that to me. I think it's all right on an Apple computer. It's just through the app on your phone. I don't even use the app because there's things that annoy me. So I don't know. Yeah, Patreon app, I don't bother with on my phone. I just use the website. So please do support if you're able to. There is also a higher tier for £9 a month where you get the videos and you get other free content if that's of interest. But also just sharing and liking it. I've had some people give it 5 stars on Spotify, which has been great. So if people want to put star reviews on Spotify or anywhere where you are able to put reviews, that would be brilliant. And just tell people about it. That'd be great. Thank you so much. I do have an immersion weekend coming up for In Bulk. If you want to come and spend a weekend here in Sark, we're going to be immersing ourselves in the pleasure and delight of the coming of spring. We have a lovely place where we stay called the Chill Inn, where it's just a beautiful space. It's really chilled. It's lovely. Big crystals everywhere and stuff, and big fire. And the woman who runs the place is just such a beautiful soul. Her name's Helen. She's one of the most egoless, lovely beings you'll ever meet. And we go out and we just see the snowdrops and the daffodils and Sark's just starting to come to life. And we plant our seeds and our intentions for the year. So it's a great way to start the year. So please do come if you would like to. Just get in touch with me, direct message me. I haven't actually put any adverts or anything out for it yet, and it's very limited numbers. So get in there quick if that is something that you'd like to do. So yeah, direct message me for more information. And that's it for now. Oh, and I will be at the Kooky Club on the 19th of December, hosting once more. So if you Google Kooky Club Guernsey, there'll be an Eventbrite thing set up for you to be able to book your tickets for that. There'll be another surprise secret guest for me to interview. I've no idea who it is, but it's always amazing. We have cream tea and lovely food, and it's just an absolute joy. So do come along and join if you live in the Channel Islands and want to come and do that. Otherwise, that's everything. And so on with the show. This evening, I entered into ceremony on my own, which isn't something that I've done for ages. And it's something that I needed to do to refill my well because I was feeling empty and exhausted. I'm back in Sark now, and it's Wednesday. And tonight is what's known in the biz as a cosmic hookup. This evening, Venus hooked up with the moon, and she does this once a month on her descent or ascent from the underworld. She just hooked up with the moon in Capricorn. She has a whole set of regalia, and as she enters the underworld, she gets stripped. This is the myth of Inanna, one of the original goddesses that Venus and Aphrodite are based on. So Inanna has her 7 bits of regalia taken from her, and then she is in the underworld with her sister in hell and is hung from meat hooks and dies. And she's brought back to life by her allies who come forward and support her and help her. And then she ascends with adding all of these elements back on. Her regalia gets added back on, and she ascends and then integrates what she's learned and what the journey has taught her. Now, I've only just started to work with this cycle. So I follow the moon cycles and I follow the sun cycles. The sun cycles I celebrate with people. I have a coven who I do things with, but I also just meet up with people generally. For example, the summer solstice will be at Glastonbury. Winter solstice, I used to always go up the Shard with my dear friend Ellie, who's Molly's daughter. In fact, I'm Molly. And we would go and pretend to be Russian spies up the Shard and look out over London with the moon hanging in the sky above us. And it's quite a spectacular thing. And winter and the solstice is about community. The summer is about nature. So it felt right to be in amongst people and be up the Shard in London for the winter solstice. And then the equinoxes and Samhain and Imbolc, and I do the immersion weekends here on Sark. And then the moon, I follow the moon cycle, and every full and dark moon I'll do a ceremony online with people. This year I've done 25 ceremonies. I'm doing it for 4 years now since the lockdown, and it's great, but they're all very giving. I'm giving a lot of energy doing that work, and it's exhausting, and I'm feeling run down. My throat chakra is blocked, it's sore. I've had a lot of glug. I've had 2 colds in the last week, and I have actually been ill a lot this year, having not been ill for years. I've been ill a lot this year, and so yeah, filling the well back up again feels important, and that's what ceremony is about. It's this punctuation mark, this moment to stop and reflect. So I've started to follow the Venus cycle, and I'm going to do this just for myself. There's a really great book by a woman who is one of my teachers called Lisa Lister. If you're on the video, you'll be able to see the book. It's pink and it has Venus written in lots of brilliantly coloured letters with an oyster shell in the background, the clam shell where Venus rises from. Lisa Lister is an old friend and teacher of mine. It's a brilliant book because it tells you how to work with the Venus cycle. So I highly recommend exploring it. I might interview her at one point. It goes through how each of the cosmic hookups, like what the kind of intentional focus is with the throat chakra for this one, for example, and it being Capricorn as well. And Capricorn's my sign. So in a way, it feels fitting that that's the first time that I've actually fully acknowledged it. Last month, I was reading the book and was a little bit aware of it, and that was Sagittarius, which is my rising sign, but my sun sign is Capricorn, and it's Capricorn season now. So I'm entering into that. And it is very much for me a month of reassessment and just checking in, really, because we then have the end of the year and it's a good time to do all of that. And for me, especially because it's my birthday on New Year's Eve, I do kind of really connect in with that. So it feels fitting that I've started this process with the Venus at this point. And before I really started doing quite a lot of output stuff in terms of ceremony, I used to do ceremonies on my own all the time and really lose myself in it. I once made myself orgasm in the bath without even touching myself and just like pouring honey all over me. And I had a crystal between my legs or something. Oh, it's mad. And I saw a vision of Bridget, the goddess, which is the only time anything like that's ever happened to me. I saw her really clearly. That was mad. And yeah, just used to have wonderful, fun times on my own, deeply losing myself in ceremony. And then started doing it more in a giving out way, sharing in ceremony with people, which is more potent. The first time I ever did a ceremony outside with other people was so powerful, and that was for Sisterhood, the play. The people, the women that I went and went to this house with in Wilmington. We kind of improvised the play, created the play, which then became the book. And we stood in this circle and we did a ceremony at night, and it just felt so naughty. Like none of us had ever done anything like that before. It was so powerful and amazing to be outside doing something together. I think it's quite significant for all of us. And then now I'm used to that. I do it all the time. That's wonderful. But what a important and mega line to have crossed. Crossed that line and stepped into this space where we're doing ceremony together. And yeah, just how it seems like a big thing to be doing. And then when you actually do it all the time, you're like, how do we live without this? I bought the book that Heather talked about on the podcast, the 9 passages of women, where you do a ceremony for the 9 passages of being a woman. I'm really excited to look at that. I'm so up for ceremony now. It's like a coming of age ceremony, a first period ceremony, menopause ceremony. I just think they're so important. And yeah, doing this tonight, I held my throat and I said my name, my new name, Jolie Rose, and made a promise. I'll share it with you, actually. This is what I wrote down. Words are more powerful and more important than ever now because we've entered the age of Aquarius, and that's an air sign. So our words create our world. The more negative we are. There's a really brilliant book called Mary Magdalene Revealed. So if you want to know more about Venus and the Rose Path, it's actually called the Rose Path. And there are a load of rose priestesses that follow it's the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and Inanna and Venus. But apparently Mary Magdalene was a priestess of the goddess Isis. Yeah, it was Isis. She was also linked to the Venus Inanna Rose Path. It's following the planet of Venus. It's all about going into the underworld and coming back again. And Venus does that. She disappears into the sun and then reemerges, changing from the evening star to the morning star. So all of this, all of our mythology and all of our stories are based on us watching the sky as a TV. I love following our universe and our astronomy. It's an interesting thing to follow. Our words are so important. I'm working with the throat chakra. We're in Sagittarius season, but the opposite of that is Gemini, which is air. We're on this spectrum between Gemini, which is the lovers and finding that balance and harmony between the yin and the yang in ourselves. And Sagittarius, which is and now I'm going to alchemize with it. I'm going to create things with it. How powerful and wonderful that is. I am Jolie Rose, and my words create my world. I spell the world into being. Create or be created. I am spelling a world into being that is a more passionate, compassionate, and extraordinary place for myself and everybody else. I am the nonsense in the chaos, and my mission is to balance the inner and outer worlds, bringing harmony to life, our relationships with each other, and the natural world. So mote it be. I felt strong to be saying and doing that. I sat in front of a mirror because Venus is all about us as goddesses. So looking in the mirror and facing yourself and doing this work with your reflection and what that brings up for you, really wonderful. And that's what has come for me this evening. Thank you so much for listening, for supporting me. If you ever want to come to any of the moon ceremonies, they're every dark and full moon. You just join the Zoom link and follow me on Facebook. It's called La Luna Coven. There's a group on Facebook called La Luna Coven. You can join that group and it will have the links. So it's every fortnight and you can join. And also you can come on the immersion weekends, which are every Samhain and Imbolc. So there'll be one coming up that's of interest to you. Also just recommend doing it on your own. Get that book, Venus by Lisa Lister, or just do ceremonies on your own and feel into it. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. We're all making it up. There are books that can help you. There's a book called Wicca, the Solitary Practitioner, which was the one that got me on my journey. It was when I was writing Sisterhood, I was looking for books to inspire me about creating symbolism and things in the play to do with witchcraft and what I might want to reflect for those who know. And when I did that, I looked at some books, and one of them was Wicca, a Solitary Practitioner, and it was really good. It told you exactly how to cast a circle and how to set up an altar and all sorts of things. That was really useful. I recommend that to anyone who wants to kind of get going and learn the craft, because it is casting a circle was done in a certain way. But again, it's all made up. So don't feel, and actually when I've done it the way that says in the book, sometimes people are really like, oh, bless you. Druids do it differently, for example. It's a Wiccan thing, not a Druid thing. I wouldn't say I'm a Wiccan. It's just that that's the book that I read. Some of my practices will be Wiccan, but definitely I've made my own stuff up. I just see myself as a creatrix witch. I'm an artist, I'm an alchemist. So yeah, I don't feel like I prescribe to any religion, any fixed faith. I think they're all have this kernel of divine beauty at the center of them all, but none of them are for me. They're just things to dip into and be interested in. I'm interested in all of the mythologies and stories, but not to then be fixed by them. I want to keep investigating and discovering and learning more. So thank you, and I hope you all are warm and cozy and having a lovely descent into winter. I'll speak to you again next week. See you then on.